July 19, 1940. Luftwaffe Test Facility, Rechlin, Brandenburg. Summer heat shimmers above concrete as convoy of military trucks arrives under heavy guard. Inside the secure hangar, Messerschmitt engineers have assembled, summoned without warning, cleared for intelligence matter of highest priority. Ober-Engineer Wilhelm Müller stands rigid as Gestapo officers unlock transport crates. What emerges defies his expectations completely. Supermarine Spitfire Mark IV intact. Captured after forced landing on French beach near Calais. Pilot killed, airframe salvaged before British could destroy it. Müller approaches slowly, engineer's eye cataloging impossible elegance. This machine represents adversary he believed primitive, outdated, tactically insignificant. Its lines mock the angular brutality of Messerschmitt Bf 109, the heavy pragmatism of Focke-Wulf designs. Elliptical wings sweep back with mathematical grace. Streamlined fuselage flows like sculpture cast in aluminum. He has designed fighters for 12 years, worked under Willy Messerschmitt himself, believed German aviation unquestionably superior. The Bf 109 dominates European skies, fast, heavily armed, tactically proven. Yet this British fighter matches it in combat, sometimes surpasses it. Now he must understand why. His certainty begins fracturing like ice under sudden weight. The war he understood is becoming something different. The examination begins with methodical German precision. 23 engineers, 6 aerodynamicists, 9 metallurgists, 4 propulsion specialists. They work 18-hour shifts, documenting every component, every system, every design decision embedded in this elliptical marvel. The specifications accumulate like evidence contradicting comfortable assumptions. Wingspan 36 feet 10 inches, 6 feet narrower than Bf 109. Wing area 242 square feet, 40 square feet less than German fighter. Maximum speed 362 miles per hour, equal to Bf 109E. Rate of climb 2,530 feet per minute, slightly inferior. Service ceiling 34,000 feet, slightly superior. These numbers suggest rough parity, competitive equivalence. They do not explain why Spitfires consistently outmaneuver German fighters in combat, why pilots report the British aircraft dances while Bf 109 fights, why kill ratios favor neither side definitively. The engine mystifies initially. Rolls-Royce Merlin III. 12 cylinders in 60-degree V configuration. Liquid-cooled single-stage supercharger generating 1,030 horsepower. German Daimler-Benz DB601 produces 175 horsepower. More power from similar displacement, yet performance remains equivalent. Müller orders complete engine teardown. What they discover is sophistication disguised as simplicity. The Merlin supercharger maintains optimal boost pressure across wider altitude range than DB601. Cooling system design allows sustained high-power operation without overheating. Fuel injection system, primitive compared to German direct injection, nonetheless proves remarkably reliable, less sensitive to negative G maneuvers. The British engine is not more powerful. It is more intelligently optimized for combat conditions. Hauptmann Franz Becker, chief aerodynamicist, spends 60 hours studying the wing design. He photographs from every angle, creates plaster models, measures airfoil sections at precise intervals along span. The elliptical planform is not merely aesthetic choice. It represents aerodynamic optimization, achieving minimum induced drag while maximizing structural efficiency. But something else captures his attention. The wing's thickness distribution, the subtle washout near tips, the complex interaction between planform shape and three-dimensional airflow. He orders full-scale wind tunnel tests at Göttingen Research Institute. The results reveal extraordinary truth. The Spitfire's wing generates lift more efficiently across wider speed range than any German fighter wing. It maintains controlled airflow to higher angles of attack. It provides progressive stall characteristics, giving pilots warning before complete loss of lift. This single innovation, this careful optimization of three-dimensional wing geometry, explains the Spitfire's legendary maneuverability, its forgiving handling, its ability to outmaneuver opponents in sustained turning engagements. They achieved through aerodynamic sophistication what Germany attempted through raw power. August 1940. The analysis project receives official designation from Reichsluftfahrtministerium. Project Adler, Eagle Study. Hermann Göring personally demands rapid results, complete understanding, Immediate application of discovered principles to German fighter development. Ober-Engineer Müller knows they face complex challenge. The Spitfire is not superior to Bf 109 in all respects. German fighter climbs faster, dives faster, carries heavier armament, possesses more robust structure. But in turning combat, the Spitfire holds decisive advantage. And aerial warfare over Britain is becoming contest of maneuverability, not pure speed. Bomber escorts require fighters that can engage and disengage at will, maintain position during extended patrols, dogfight effectively when intercepted. The first assessment cuts through propaganda's comfortable lies. The Spitfire's elliptical wing cannot be easily replicated in German production. Its complex geometry requires precision manufacturing beyond most German factories' current capability. Each wing is essentially hand-built, ribs individually formed, skin panels carefully shaped to maintain aerodynamic contours. German production philosophy emphasizes rapid manufacturing, interchangeable parts, simplified assembly. The Bf 109's wing is flat, angular, easily produced by semi-skilled labor. Effective, if aerodynamically crude. The Spitfire's wing is sculpture requiring craftsmen. Engineer Klaus Hoffmann calculates production implications with brutal honesty. Adopting Spitfire-style elliptical wing for Bf 109 would reduce production rate by 40% minimum, require retooling of existing factories, demand higher skill levels from assembly workers already stretched thin. Germany produces approximately 250 Bf 109s monthly, barely adequate for combat losses plus expansion needs. Reducing production to 150 monthly, while introducing new wing design could create dangerous fighter gap, leaving bomber formations vulnerable during transition period. Major Heinrich Vogel, Luftwaffe Liaison, presents the strategic dilemma to Müller with stark clarity. We need fighters now, not perfect fighters eventually. The Battle of Britain is happening this month, not next year. Can you improve Bf 109 performance without disrupting production? This question frames all subsequent work. Not can we match the Spitfire, but can we narrow the gap within existing industrial constraints? Müller reviews options with his team through late August nights. They could redesign Bf 109 wing entirely. Maximum performance gain, unacceptable production disruption. They could modify existing wing with tip extensions, leading edge slats, improved ailerons, moderate gains, manageable disruption. They could focus on other aspects: engine tuning, weight reduction, armament optimization, marginal gains, no disruption. Every choice involves trade-offs between theoretical excellence and practical necessity. The Spitfire represents what British could build with their industrial methods. Germany must achieve competitiveness through different path. The psychological impact spreads through Rechlin like slow-acting poison. Engineers who spent careers believing German aviation superior now confront captured aircraft matching their best designs through different engineering philosophy. The Spitfire's advantages are not overwhelming. They are subtle, nuanced, embedded in details that require expertise to appreciate. This makes them more disturbing than obvious superiority. If British were clearly ahead, it would sting less than discovering they achieved parity through different approaches Germany dismissed as inferior. Some retreat into defensive rationalization. Oberst Kurt Reinhardt insists Spitfire advantages are exaggerated, that Bf 109's superior dive speed and firepower outweigh minor maneuverability deficits, that German tactical doctrine properly employed negates British advantages. He writes memoranda emphasizing Bf 109 strengths: better roll rate at high speed, more resistant to battle damage, easier to maintain in field conditions. These observations contain truth. They also avoid acknowledging that aerial combat over Britain increasingly favors the aircraft that can sustain turning engagements, that can chase bombers through evasive maneuvers, that provides pilots with forgiving handling during the chaos of dogfighting. Others embrace uncomfortable clarity. Hauptmann Becker begins documenting not what they learned from Spitfire, but why German design philosophy produced different solutions to fighter requirements. His reports read like comparative analysis of engineering cultures. Germany emphasized production efficiency, maintenance simplicity, pilot protection through heavy armor and firepower. Britain emphasized aerodynamic refinement, handling qualities, pilot capability through superior aircraft performance. German fighters were weapons built for total war economy. British fighters were instruments built for aerial combat artistry. Neither approach was wrong. They optimized for different assumptions about warfare's nature. Oberingenieur Müller reads these assessments in his quarters overlooking the airfield. Through windows, he watches Bf-109s return from combat sorties over Channel, some damaged, some missing entirely. Pilots reporting increasingly capable British resistance. The Spitfire is not wonder weapon. It is very good fighter flown by increasingly experienced pilots defending their homeland. The Bf-109 is equally good fighter flown by experienced pilots operating at range limit over hostile territory. In this context, subtle advantages matter enormously. The aircraft that turns slightly tighter, that warns pilot before stalling, that forgives small errors during violent maneuvering, that aircraft accumulates marginal advantages into survival. The Spitfire taught them that excellence has multiple expressions, that there is no single optimal solution to fighter design, that engineering requires understanding context as deeply as physics. They are not facing technological inferiority. They are facing different technological philosophy optimized for different priorities. Understanding this distinction matters for what they attempt next. September 1940. Test flights begin with modified Bf-109E incorporating lessons from Spitfire analysis. Test pilot Hauptmann Werner Melders, already ace with 14 kills, evaluates the improved aircraft over Rechlin. The modifications are subtle. Redesigned wingtips reducing span slightly while improving aileron authority. Enlarged rudder providing better directional control. Modified supercharger boost improving high-altitude performance. Nothing revolutionary. Everything incremental. Melders climbs to 20,000 feet, begins combat maneuvers. The improved 109 responds crisply, controls balanced better than standard version. He initiates hard turn at combat speed. The aircraft pulls tight, maintains energy well, recovers cleanly, better than before. Still not quite Spitfire level. He pushes harder, approaching stall angle. The wing drops suddenly, sharply. Standard 109 stall behavior, now slightly improved, but still demanding. A Spitfire would have buffeted gently, warned the pilot, allowed recovery. The 109 demands respect, punishes inattention. After landing, Melders writes assessment with combat pilot's pragmatism. Improvements are noticeable and welcome. The aircraft handles better in all regimes. But fundamental characteristics remain. The 109 is still unforgiving fighter that rewards skill and punishes mistakes. The Spitfire forgives pilot errors we cannot eliminate. In long engagement, fatigue matters. The aircraft that allows small mistakes without catastrophic consequences provides cumulative advantage. This observation cuts to the heart of design philosophy differences. German fighters demand excellence from pilots. British fighters enable excellence from pilots. Subtle distinction, significant consequences. Engineer Hoffman analyzes combat loss data from Battle of Britain with statistical rigor. German fighter losses, 42% from combat, 38% from mechanical failure, 20% from accidents including landing mishaps and navigation errors. British fighter losses, 53% from combat, 29% from mechanical failure, 18% from accidents. The data suggests British aircraft slightly more reliable mechanically, slightly more forgiving operationally. Not dramatic differences, but in war of attrition, margins matter. Production implementation begins in October. The improved Bf-109E enters service as 109E4 variant. Pilots report noticeable handling improvements. Combat effectiveness increases measurably, but the fundamental dynamic of aerial combat over Britain remains unchanged. Spitfires can engage or disengage at will in turning fight. Bf-109s must use energy tactics and superior dive speed. Neither side gains decisive advantage. The improvements narrowed the gap without eliminating it. Müller reviews monthly reports with mixture of satisfaction and frustration. They achieved what was possible within constraints. Improved German fighter without disrupting production, incorporated some Spitfire lessons, maintained competitive parity, but they did not achieve superiority. The elliptical wing secrets remained partially locked, its full benefits unattainable within German industrial framework. Behind the technical project, parallel intelligence operation unfolds. The Abwehr assigns special section to investigating how Britain developed such aeronautically refined fighter. Hauptmann Alexander Koch leads team analyzing captured documents, interrogating prisoners, reconstructing organizational infrastructure behind Spitfire's creation. What they discover illuminates different national approaches to aviation development. The Spitfire emerged from individual genius constrained by institutional conservatism. Reginald Mitchell, Supermarine's chief designer, conceived the elliptical wing design despite Air Ministry preferences for simpler geometry. His vision was aesthetic and aerodynamic. He saw the optimal wing shape mathematically and pursued it despite manufacturing difficulties. Supermarine was aircraft company with maritime aviation heritage, accustomed to building flying boats with complex curved structures. They possessed craftsmen capable of forming the elliptical wings demanding geometry. The Spitfire succeeded because individual brilliance aligned with institutional capability, because designers' vision matched manufacturers' skills. German fighter development followed different trajectory. Messerschmitt designed Bf-109 with production efficiency paramount. Angular forms, flat panels, simple assemblies. Willy Messerschmitt was engineer who understood manufacturing constraints as deeply as aerodynamic principles. His genius lay in optimizing fighter performance within realistic production parameters. The Bf-109 succeeded because pragmatic brilliance aligned with industrial reality, because designer accepted constraints rather than transcending them. Koch's reports document neither superiority nor inferiority. They document different engineering philosophies shaped by different industrial contexts. Britain's aircraft industry emphasized craft tradition, skilled labor, quality over quantity, small production runs of excellent aircraft. Germany's industry emphasized mass production, semi-skilled labor, adequate quality in large quantities, large production runs of good enough aircraft. The Spitfire was optimal solution for British system. The Bf-109 was optimal solution for German system. Neither could have succeeded in the other's context. The analysis extends to tactical doctrine. RAF Fighter Command organized around defense, aircraft operating from familiar bases over home territory, with ground control guidance, fighting close to maintenance facilities. Luftwaffe organized around offense, aircraft operating at range limit, over hostile territory, with limited ground support, fighting far from maintenance infrastructure. The Spitfire's forgiving handling suited defensive operations where aircraft could be repaired. Pilots could recover from minor damage. The Bf-109's robust structure suited offensive operations where aircraft faced longer flights, harsher conditions, limited maintenance support. Koch's final report concludes, Britain built fighter optimized for the war they anticipated fighting. Germany built fighter optimized for the war they planned to fight. Both succeeded within their strategic contexts. The problem is not aircraft inadequacy, but strategic miscalculation. Germany is fighting defensive air war over Britain with fighter designed for offensive operations over Poland and France. October 1940. The moral dimension weighs increasingly heavy. Oberingenieur Müller sits in meetings with Luftwaffe commanders demanding immediate solutions, decisive advantages, technological breakthroughs that will turn Battle of Britain in Germany's favor. He provides realistic assessments while knowing they want reassuring fantasies. The improved Bf-109E4 is better aircraft than E3. It is not miracle weapon. It will not suddenly grant Germany air superiority over Britain. The aerial war has become a attritional contest where neither side can achieve decisive advantage, where both sides bleed pilots and aircraft daily, where outcome depends on industrial capacity and pilot training pipelines as much as aircraft performance. The ethical dilemma becomes personal when Miller visits fighter squadron based at Pas-de-Calais. Young pilots, 22 years old, ask him about new improvements, about whether modifications will let them beat the Spitfires decisively. He sees hope in their eyes, faith that German engineering will provide edge needed for victory. He wants to tell them truth. The improvements help, but the Spitfire remains formidable opponent in hands of skilled pilot, and British pilots grow more skilled daily through constant combat experience defending home territory. Instead, he offers encouragement, technical details, reassurance that German engineering continues advancing. The lie tastes like ash, but truth seems crueler. These young men fly into combat daily, face death repeatedly. Does crushing their hope serve any purpose beyond salving his conscience? Hauptmann Becker confronts this differently. He requests permission to brief combat pilots honestly about Spitfire capabilities, about realistic expectations for Bf-109 performance, about tactical approaches maximizing German advantages while avoiding British strengths. His proposal is approved. His technical credibility, and Milder's combat endorsement override conservative objections. Becker delivers classified briefings emphasizing energy tactics, boom and zoom attacks, avoiding sustained turning engagements. Pilots receive this information gratefully. Honest assessment they can use tactically, rather than propaganda they must navigate around. The divergent approaches reveal institutional tensions within Luftwaffe. Some commanders want pilots inspired through confidence in equipment superiority. Others want pilots educated through honest assessment of capabilities and limitations. Both approaches serve purpose. Confidence sustains morale. Realism improves survival. The optimal balance remains elusive. Mueller observes that the Spitfire taught them about aerodynamics, but also about the challenge of communicating technical truth to those whose lives depend on equipment performance. Knowledge is not always power. Sometimes knowledge is burden that must be carefully calibrated in its communication, neither overwhelming confidence nor enabling fatal complacency. November 1940. The Battle of Britain's intensity diminishes as weather deteriorates and Luftwaffe transitions toward night bombing. The strategic air campaign against Britain has failed to achieve its objectives. RAF Fighter Command remains operational. Aircraft production continues. British resolve unbroken. The Bf-109's range limitations contributed significantly. Fighters could only provide limited bomber escort over British targets before fuel exhaustion forced return. Many bomber losses occurred after fighter escorts departed. The Spitfire, operating from nearby bases with no range constraints, could sustain combat throughout raids. Miller receives assignment to evaluate range extension options for Bf-109. The analysis reveals uncomfortable truths about design compromises. The Bf-109's lightweight construction, high performance, and heavy armament left minimal margin for fuel capacity increase. Adding drop tanks helps marginally but increases drag, reducing speed and maneuverability. The fundamental issue is design philosophy. Bf-109 was optimized as short-range interceptor and tactical air superiority fighter, not long-range escort fighter. Modifying it for role it was never designed to perform means accepting performance compromises undermining its core strengths. The Spitfire faces inverse challenge. RAF Fighter Command needs longer-range variants for bomber escort missions into occupied Europe. Supermarine develops Spitfire variants with additional fuel tanks, reduced armament, modified wing structures. These escort Spitfires sacrifice some dogfighting performance for operational range. The difference is, British are modifying proven defensive fighter for offensive operations from position of strategic security. Germany is trying to modify offensive fighter for extended offensive operations from position of strategic frustration. Engineer Hoffman produces comparative analysis examining design philosophy implications. The Spitfire's elliptical wing provides efficiency, enabling range extension without catastrophic performance loss, he writes. Additional fuel weight is partially compensated by wing's aerodynamic efficiency. The Bf-109 simpler wing has less aerodynamic margin. Additional weight directly impacts performance. We optimized for pure performance. They optimized for performance with growth potential. Neither approach was wrong initially, but adaptability matters when strategic requirements change. This observation captures broader lesson from Spitfire study. The British fighter was not superior in all respects. It was more adaptable to changing requirements. Its sophisticated aerodynamics provided margin for modification. Its robust production system could incorporate changes without complete redesign. Its operational doctrine emphasized defensive flexibility rather than offensive rigidity. The Spitfire succeeded not merely through excellent design, but through design philosophy embracing modification, adaptation, continuous improvement. The Bf-109 succeeded through optimized design for a specific role, brilliant within constraints, limited beyond them. Modern warfare rewards adaptability as much as raw performance. December 1940. Production data reveals the attrition arithmetic's harsh reality. Germany produced 1,168 Bf-109s from July through November. Combat losses plus operational accidents consumed 1,456 aircraft. Net gain, 412 fighters. Britain produced 1,081 Spitfires and Hurricanes combined during same period. Combat losses plus operational accidents consumed 768 aircraft. Net gain, 313 fighters. The numbers suggest Germany maintains slight production advantage. But context matters critically. German fighters operate at range limit, requiring higher sortie rates for equivalent combat exposure. British fighters operate from home bases with better maintenance, faster turnaround, higher utilization rates. Effective combat power favors Britain despite lower gross production. Miller analyzes these statistics with growing concern. The improved Bf-109E4 has better performance, easier handling, enhanced combat effectiveness. These advantages show in pilot reports, in combat kill ratios, in squadron assessments, but they do not show in strategic outcome. Britain continues fighting, continues producing fighters, continues training replacement pilots. The Spitfire's forgiving handling actually aids Britain's pilot training. New pilots can become combat effective more quickly in aircraft that tolerates learning mistakes. The Bf-109's demanding handling slows German training. New pilots require more flight hours before combat readiness in aircraft that punishes errors severely. This reveals deeper lesson about design philosophy's strategic implications. Aircraft performance matters, but trainability matters equally in war of attrition. The side that can rapidly train replacement pilots maintains combat effectiveness despite losses. The Spitfire's progressive stall characteristics, gentle handling near limits, forgiving recovery from mistakes. These features are not merely combat advantages. They are training advantages enabling faster pilot production. Hauptmann Becker articulates this in memorandum to Luftwaffe Training Command. We have focused on building superior fighter. Perhaps we should also consider building fighter that produces superior fighter pilots more rapidly. The Spitfire's handling qualities serve dual purpose. They enhance combat effectiveness while reducing training time. We optimized solely for combat performance, assuming adequate training infrastructure would always exist. Britain optimized for combat performance while considering training pipeline constraints. Their approach proves strategically wiser. The memorandum is filed, acknowledged, ultimately ignored. Training doctrine is not aeronautical engineering's responsibility. Institutional boundaries prevent systemic thinking. The Spitfire taught them about integrated design, aircraft performance, pilot training, maintenance requirements, production constraints all considered holistically. German approach compartmentalized these factors, optimizing each separately without considering interactions. Neither approach guaranteed victory. But British approach proved more resilient under sustained combat conditions than German approach. January 1941. Strategic focus shifts eastward as Hitler plans invasion of Soviet Union. The aerial war over Britain becomes secondary concern, maintaining defensive presence, conducting nuisance raids, preserving forces for coming Eastern campaign. Miller receives new directive: evaluate Bf-109 performance for Eastern Front conditions. The analysis reveals that German fighter will face different challenges: vast distances, primitive airfields, extreme weather, opponents with different tactical doctrine than RAF. The Spitfire studies lessons prove relevant in unexpected ways. The British fighters' sophisticated aerodynamics provided adaptability, enabling modifications for changing requirements. As Bf-109 faces new operational contexts, similar adaptability would prove valuable. But the German fighters' design philosophy emphasized optimization for specific role rather than flexible adaptation. Modifications for Eastern Front conditions, improved cold weather capability, reinforced landing gear for rough fields, simplified maintenance for field conditions, necessarily compromised the performance optimizations that made Bf-109 effective. Engineer Hoffman produces final comprehensive report on Spitfire analysis. The document runs 347 pages, includes detailed technical drawings, aerodynamic analysis, combat performance evaluation, production assessment, strategic implications. The core conclusion: the Spitfire represents alternative design philosophy, achieving comparable performance through different means. We cannot simply copy their approach. Our industrial system, tactical doctrine, strategic requirements differ fundamentally. But we can learn that excellence has multiple expressions, that optimization for single mission reduces adaptability for changing conditions, that forgiving handling characteristics serve strategic purpose beyond immediate combat advantage. Future fighter designs should incorporate these insights not by copying British solutions, but by developing German solutions addressing similar considerations within our context. The report is distributed to Messerschmitt, Focke-Wulf, Heinkel design bureaus. It influences next-generation fighter development. FW-190 incorporates some lessons about handling qualities and adaptability, but the immediate impact is limited. War's momentum carries existing designs forward. The BF-109 will fight throughout the war, essentially unchanged in fundamental characteristics, continuously modified in details, but retaining core strengths and weaknesses established in 1930s design phase. Mueller watches BF-109s depart for Eastern Front deployment with mixed feelings. The fighter is proven weapon, combat effective, tactically sound. It is also fundamentally unchanged despite all they learned from Spitfire analysis. Knowledge gained, insights developed, principles understood, yet practical application constrained by industrial inertia, strategic momentum, institutional boundaries. The Spitfire taught them much. How much could be implemented within wartime constraints remained frustratingly limited. Understanding and action diverged like parallel lines never meeting. March 1941. Hauptmann Werner Mulders achieves his 51st aerial victory, becomes first fighter pilot to surpass Red Baron's WWI record. He flies BF-109E4, the improved variant incorporating lessons from Spitfire analysis. In interview, he credits aircraft improvements with enhancing combat effectiveness. The handling refinements matter in the chaos of dogfighting, he explains. When you're pulling maximum G-forces, tracking deflection shots, managing energy state, monitoring fuel and ammunition, small improvements in control harmony make large difference in cognitive workload. The aircraft demands slightly less attention, leaving slightly more mental capacity for tactical decisions. Margins matter. This observation validates the incremental improvement approach Miller's team pursued. They did not match the Spitfire's elliptical wing perfection. They did not transform the BF-109 into fundamentally different aircraft. They refined within constraints, improved what could be improved, achieved measurable if modest enhancements. In the aggregate, across thousands of aircraft, millions of flight hours, countless combat engagements, these refinements mattered. But strategic context determines tactical significance. The improved BF-109E4 helps Germany maintain air superiority over conquered territories, supports ground operations, defends against British bomber raids. It does not enable Germany to achieve air superiority over Britain itself. The Battle of Britain's failure stemmed from strategic overreach, logistical constraints, inadequate bomber force, not primarily from fighter inadequacy. The Spitfire was excellent defensive fighter. The BF-109 was excellent offensive fighter operating beyond its design envelope. No amount of aerodynamic refinement could overcome strategic-level constraints. Oberingenieur Müller reflects on this in final project report submitted March 1941. Project Adler achieved its technical objectives within defined constraints. We analyzed the Spitfire comprehensively, understood its design principles, identified its advantages, incorporated applicable lessons into BF-109 development. The resulting improvements measurably enhanced combat effectiveness. However, tactical improvements cannot overcome strategic miscalculations. The Spitfire's success in Battle of Britain resulted partially from excellent design, partially from defensive operational context, partially from British strategic advantages in maintaining combat over home territory. We improved our fighter. We could not improve our strategic position. This distinction matters for understanding both success and failure. The report concludes with recommendation. Future German fighter development should consider operational context as carefully as aerodynamic performance, should optimize for adaptability rather than narrow mission focus, should incorporate margin for modification as strategic requirements evolve. These recommendations influence FW-190 development. But the BF-109, Germany's primary fighter throughout the war, will continue in production essentially unchanged in fundamental design philosophy. Sometimes knowledge arrives too late for implementation in systems already committed to different paths. June 1941. Operation Barbarossa, invasion of Soviet Union, begins. The BF-109E4 and newer F variant dominate early air combat against Soviet fighters. German tactical skill, combat experience, and aircraft performance proved decisive in opening months. The Spitfire analysis contributed to this success through incremental improvements that accumulated into meaningful advantage. But the fundamental lesson, adaptability matters in extended conflict, proves prophetic as war expands beyond anyone's initial calculations. The captured Spitfire sits forgotten in Rechlin hangar, covered with dust, occasionally examined by junior engineers learning aerodynamics. It has served its purpose, taught its lessons, revealed its secrets, contributed what knowledge German industry could absorb within existing constraints. The aircraft itself is artifact now, memorial to moment when Germany confronted British engineering excellence and discovered worthy opponent, rather than primitive adversary. Hauptmann Becker, promoted to major, transfers to FW-190 development program. His experience analyzing Spitfire influences new fighters' design, better handling near stall, more forgiving control characteristics, greater adaptability for role modifications. The FW-190 will prove excellent fighter, complementing BF-109 through different design philosophy. The lessons from Spitfire analysis manifest in subtle ways throughout German aviation development, never transformational, but persistently influential. Engineer Hoffmann joins Messerschmitt jet fighter program in 1943. The Me-262 represents radical departure from piston engine fighter design, yet some principles from Spitfire analysis carry forward: attention to handling qualities, consideration of pilot workload, understanding that forgiving characteristics serve strategic purpose. The elliptical wing's lessons about aerodynamic efficiency influence jet wing design. Knowledge compounds across programs, across years, across technological generations. Oberengineer Miller remains at Rechlin through war's middle years, evaluating captured Allied aircraft, P-51 Mustang, P-47 Thunderbolt, later model Spitfires with increasingly powerful engines. Each analysis reveals American and British aviation advancing. Each study shows Germany struggling to maintain parity as industrial attrition reduces manufacturing quality and material availability. The early war confidence, belief in German technical superiority, eroded by accumulated evidence of Allied competence, innovation, industrial capacity. The Spitfire was first crack in that confidence, first captured Allied aircraft clearly matching Germany's best fighter on roughly equal terms. Its elliptical wing represented different engineering philosophy achieving comparable results through different means. This revelation, that excellence has multiple expressions, that German approach was not uniquely optimal, proved more psychologically significant than any specific technical lesson. It opened minds to possibility that Germany faced capable opponents whose different solutions to fighter design problems might prove equally or more effective in specific contexts. This intellectual humility, forced by empirical evidence, served Germany poorly strategically, but improved engineering realism tactically. May 1945. Germany surrenders. The aviation facilities at Rechlin are overrun by Soviet forces who capture remaining aircraft, including the dust-covered Spitfire Mark I studied 5 years earlier. American and British technical intelligence teams arrive weeks later, negotiate with Soviets for access to German research documents. They discover Project Adler files, comprehensive analysis of Spitfire design, detailed study of elliptical wing aerodynamics, honest assessment of British fighters' capabilities. Captain Robert Anderson, RAF Technical Intelligence Officer, reads Miller's reports with professional respect. They understood the Spitfire thoroughly, he tells American colleagues. Every technical advantage, every design principle, every aerodynamic innovation, they analyzed it correctly. Their conclusions about why we developed it differently than they would have are insightful. He pauses, considering implications. But understanding didn't translate to duplication. They couldn't copy our manufacturing methods, couldn't adopt our design philosophy, couldn't replicate within their industrial system. They learned everything except how to become us. This observation captures the fundamental lesson. The Spitfire's elliptical wing was not secret waiting to be stolen. It was publicly visible, photographically documented, technically analyzable. The Germans possessed complete understanding within months of capturing intact example. Understanding was never the barrier. Implementation within different industrial context, different manufacturing tradition, different operational doctrine. That was the unbridgeable gap. Major Becker, now prisoner awaiting processing, discusses this with British interrogators. Your Spitfire taught us that excellence in fighter design has many expressions, he explains. We optimized for production efficiency and raw performance. You optimized for aerodynamic refinement and handling qualities. Both approaches produced excellent fighters, but your approach proved more adaptable to changing conditions, more forgiving to pilots under stress, more amenable to continuous improvement. We learned this intellectually. We could not implement it systemically within our industrial framework. The interrogator asks, if you could redesign BF-109 from beginning, knowing what Spitfire analysis taught you, would you copy elliptical wing? Becker considers carefully. No. We would still optimize for our industrial strengths, mass production, simplified manufacturing, maintenance and field conditions. But we would incorporate margin for adaptation, prioritize handling qualities more highly, design for pilot training efficiency, as well as combat performance. We would pursue German solution to problems the Spitfire solved British way. Different solution, similar considerations. The lesson was not copy Britain. The lesson was understand design holistically, considering strategic context as thoroughly as aerodynamic performance. Outside, British and American teams catalog German aviation technology for post-war exploitation. The Spitfire sits among captured aircraft awaiting evaluation. Teacher returned to students, artifact of technological exchange conducted through war. Decades later, aviation historians would analyze Germany's Spitfire study as case study in technological intelligence. What can be learned from opponents' equipment? What cannot be simply copied? How national industrial contexts constrain design choices regardless of technical knowledge. The captured Spitfire became artifact of broader truth. Understanding enemy technology does not automatically enable matching it. Knowledge and implementation diverge when industrial systems differ fundamentally. The improved BF-109E4 and later variants served Germany effectively throughout the war. Pilots praised handling improvements, combat effectiveness increased measurably, tactical capabilities expanded noticeably. These improvements traced partially to Spitfire analysis. Lessons absorbed, principles adapted, knowledge implemented within German constraints. The incremental enhancements mattered in aggregate across millions of combat hours. But they never transformed the fundamental characteristics that made BF-109 excellent at what it was designed for, while limited in roles beyond original conception. Oberingenieur Wilhelm Müller survived the war, worked briefly for Soviet aviation industry before escaping to West Germany in 1947. He joined Messerschmitt's reconstituted post-war aviation division, contributed to early jet transport development. He never spoke publicly about Spitfire analysis. Private technical papers donated to Deutsches Museum after his death in 1968 reveal engineer who understood that excellence has multiple expressions, that design philosophy matters as much as technical specifications, that industrial context shapes what can be achieved regardless of theoretical knowledge. The Spitfire itself, the specific Mark I captured in 1940, was scrapped by Soviets in 1946, aluminum recycled, technical artifacts dispersed, but its influence persisted through German engineers who studied it, who carried lessons into post-war aviation development, who understood that their wartime opponent achieved comparable results through genuinely different approach deserving respect rather than dismissal. The elliptical wings legend grew in post-war years, symbol of Spitfire's grace, icon of British engineering excellence, emblem of RAF's finest hour. The technical reality was more nuanced. Excellent design optimally suited to British industrial capabilities and strategic requirements, less suited to German industrial context and operational needs. Neither superior nor inferior in absolute terms, superior within British context, challenging to replicate within German framework. The true lesson transcended specific aircraft. Modern warfare increasingly rewards adaptability, training efficiency, manufacturing flexibility, strategic alignment between equipment capabilities and operational requirements. The side that achieves these systematically holds advantage over opponent excelling in isolated dimensions. Germany learned from Spitfire. Britain learned from BF-109. Both advanced through studying opponents. Victory came to side better integrating tactical knowledge with strategic capacity, technical excellence with industrial reality, theoretical understanding with practical implementation.